Hello folks, brews here, Early Brews at the mic. So today I'm gonna talk about the missing prototype deck lists, which I wanted to compare to the results of the SCG Open in Indianapolis. And you've seen those deck lists, but the point of this part 2 of week 1 standard is to see how expectations or predictions match up against the actual results from the tournament past weekend. So here we see Asper Control. We didn't see actual Asper doing very well at Indy. There were some at the tournament, but none hit top 64. But there was a blue-white control deck and there was a black-white control deck. So we're gonna compare this Esper to those. This is a rough sketch. Not sure the mana base is correct here, because I changed quite a few cards compared to what we saw last season. So of course new additions Dolian Bond, so you have a good range of planeswalkers to choose from between main and sideboard. You do have mass removals. Perhaps the sand is maybe a little bit too clunky and too expensive for this deck, so perhaps it should be a third Fumigate or just another spot removal. Truce is okay main. I don't know about Transgress main, but I think it was a staple in every black control deck, basically. So I think the deck should play Rebuff main deck as the cheap counter of choice. Definitely Unmakings and Grasps. And then in terms of your cantrip spells, you have options between Fortune's Favor, Oath of Chase, things like that. Not sure if you need the Cloud Blazer at all. Maybe it's just for the blue-white deck. Here maybe it's just not really needed. Hulk is pretty good in those decks, I feel like. So if you're gonna play blue control deck, I feel like you should be playing those. Then the Wagyu Hulk is quite okay too, of course. So Oath of Liliana has been a very good addition to black-white control. And then as for sideboard, you have a range of counter spells. Not sure how many copies of Will and Dismissal you want there. You definitely want either Peak to Brain or Lost Legacy in the sideboard, that's for sure. I don't know, perhaps you want another Tendros instead of another Descent, because the metagame seems to be quite fast. Then perhaps you want more of the declarations and not so many of the paths or any at all. Emrakul in the sideboard is a fine win condition. Kaladesh maybe could be moved to main deck, I don't know, or maybe a split between main and sideboard. Demon seems like a very nice sideboard card. And then while we don't really want to play Talia, Authority is a good way to stop all those vehicles and hasty dudes. So this is what we saw. That's black-white control, 30th place. But it is basically an angel kind of build, more creature based. It has the Talus Lances to fetch up different stuff, but well, yeah, we don't really see that many angels apart from Avacyn, so no Bruno or Gisela, which is I think okay. Pretty weird one is one of Ailey in this control deck. It's kinda strange. Galactus main is alright. Talia basically here just is the fetch target for the Lancers. So that's it. And then pretty expected composition of planeswalkers for just black-white. We see Path actually as one of main deck. One of Liliana is quite alright here. Different removals, complementing and making with murder. And Cessny, and even as one of Deadweight, maybe to switch on some Delirium action, I don't know. Perhaps just as a good cheap removal. So we see Authority here in the bold, and then Call the Bloodline is interesting in the sideboard. Not sure which deck, in what matchups you want it, probably against other control decks. Just a way to utilize mana flood situations. Quarantine Field probably a staple for sideboards as well. extra on making. Kambal is weird. I'm thinking about to put one into the sideboard of the Abzan Evolution combo deck, but I'm not so sure. Do you actually want it against control if you are creature deck or if you're a control deck? I don't know like how impactful that is. Haven't really tested it, so he probably put it in the sideboard because it looks sweet, but I don't think that there is much of practice behind this decision. Lane Valley is the obvious one. Fragmentize is your staple for sideboards for now on, at least until vehicles decks will be kind of pushed off of the metagame. Harsh Scrutiny is alright. It's worse than Despise a lot of the time, but it's a cheap way to get rid of some nasty creature and then gets you disguised. So not much delirium going on, so Lost Legacy that is, so complementary cards depending on the matchups. Yeah, that's it. And then we move on to the blue-white mid-range control. So what I brewed was more about comes into play triggers and all that, scrutiny. So it's more of a spirits slash big flyers deck. Well, not exactly big, but it's more of a value deck. And that's why I had crawlers in here and a lot of creatures and not that many counters and not that many planeswalkers or removal, and they even have the Panharmonicon. And then pretty self-explanatory sideboards. And then this is what the Japanese guys brewed, going real deep, abusing the synergy between Displacer, Drowner plus the Panharmonicon, free energy fluxes, a bunch of comes into play triggers. It's a bit weird to see Crane here, because it only gets you the Panharmonicon or the Crawler, which I think is kinda low value. Yeah, kinda clunky list, just very square, and yeah, people point out that there is an infinite kind of a combo here with Displacer, Panharmonicon, and the Drowner, so infinite dudes, but oh well, I don't know how good is that. Perhaps against mid-range it could be pretty good, but it's not really a big deal, I think. Against certain creature decks that can maybe just try to burn you out, but then again they can't really attack with flyers. Against control, well, they just can sweep the board and that's it. And then what we actually saw at the tournament blue-white control, not really that much on creatures or can enter the battlefield type of value. Really weird to see the big J's here. I think it could be just another Gideon or something, but J's pluses every time and draws you a card, it bounces a creature, which is okay, I guess. 4 blue Gearhawks, that's kind of crazy, and just one of the white ones. That seems kind of odd to me. I think the numbers should be like 3, 2. Current and Field main deck. Glimmer Genius is your divination for this season. Immolating Glare is here because it deals with the vehicles, which could be annoying. Buff is here, complemented by a main deck negate. Skullwearer Shot is pretty big staple. Now, during that tournament, probably after it, one of Dismissal main deck, which is kind of crazy. I guess he expected some Emrakul decks to do good, but they didn't quite do all that well. But also it's good against Emerge decks, like not just countering Emrakul, but also countering some triggers, for example, from the Elder Deep Thane, so which is nice. White Shatter is interesting here, but I guess in the straight blue-white deck it's okay. For a Fumigate main deck, the trap is kind of weird. I don't like it all that much. Lets you tap down something and kind of freeze for Eternal Planeswalker, but I don't know how good is that. Is it actually worth the slot? But between the Glimmer that gets you energy, and I believe he did run the... no, he didn't run the Energy Land. He didn't. He opted for the Cataract instead for extra pro draw. So I don't know how good is this. Well, the trap already lets you do that for a couple of turns, but I'm still not sure. Bunch of different counterspells just early in the sideboard. That's kind of interesting. It dies to pretty much anything, so I don't know if you don't have recursion or some strange combination of it, for example, as a one of Grisella, so it's weird. So it's actually life gain, but I think you can do better than that. Lidvala, Gideon, Fragmentize, yeah, very solid sideboard. Moving on, this is what I thought Blue-White Spears could look like in this new season. But yeah, as I pointed out earlier, some of those defense could be the Angel of Invention or the Archangel I was saying, so it depends on your preference. The rest is pretty solid, except that this spell suit could be slightly altered. Some numbers could be changed depending on your preference in metagame. And then very straightforward sideboards, which can also maybe be a bit altered. So maybe instead of Blastilance you want something else, but I think it's pretty good still because you get to gain extra life, which could be pretty vital sometimes. Yeah, so a few counters, few ways to stop haste guys and bishops to pro draw and extra removal. So, and yeah, what we actually ended up seeing at the tournament was not exactly a spirit stack, but very close. I think there were some spirit stacks which looked very similar to what I've shown you, but this is what actually ended up doing pretty decent-ish. So the 37th place is probably something like 10-4, like 9-5 or something. Probably something like 10-4. Yeah, but Scrounger is kind of weird, and yeah, well, he does have the Courtyard and Hub to produce black, so he can bring it back, and then Exemplar is there instead of the Mausoleum, which I kind of get because Mausoleum is pretty bad against the red-white decks, and Exemplar can be a bit more aggressive, so Inspect is just more per draw. So yeah, I could see why he did all this, and then playing Copter himself, so a really big staple right now. And no counters, just removals. Just removals. Word and Spoon is kind of weird, but yeah, this build has more ground creatures, so I could see that going for him. Jackson Agaze, Talia, Gideon, Fragmentize. So, yeah, a very straightforward sideboard. Next archetype is green-white tokens, which didn't end up being really a tokens decks, but green-white aggro instead from the Brad Nelson, Tom Ross, and Todd Anderson team up. So this build is quite a lot different from what they actually ended up playing. So they played a much faster, more aggressive build. The problem with green-white, if you want to go really mid-range, is that you have a lot of cool cards that compete for the 5 mana slot. I think because their deck was a bit more grounded and more aggressive, so they didn't have to play Gearhulk, for example. I don't think they played Ovia at all. I'm gonna try as a one-off in the Abzan Evolution deck, just to see where it's at, because that deck actually produces a lot of tokens. So they probably played 4 Gearhulks, and that's a real beast, that's a real deal. But if you're a bit more kind of mid-range control-ish, you probably want more Avacins or something, or Gearhulks. So we'd look at their list in a moment. What I liked about this build, because you had mana acceleration, they ended up playing another 2-drop for mana acceleration. because they probably could not really switch on Delirium that well, and that other dude is probably better if you can't hit Delirium. This was funny because of the Hulk and the 3-mana Nisa and Disenchantment, so just spread the love and then just draw extra cards, but it might be just too cute. Might be just too cute, and I just love the cards, but maybe it's just extra, especially if you don't play the 3-mana Nisa, then you don't really need the Judge anyway. So yeah, off of Nisa, this funky enchantment, some removals, and then the usuals in the sideboard. So let's show you what they actually played. So they played, as I said, 4 Green Hugs. They played 4 Warriors main deck, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, this was the 2-drop mana dork of choice. In addition to Advocates, Inspectors, it was more grounded stack. Tracker's main because why not? Defense is pretty crazy. I'm not actually surprised to see that card in Constructed. I think it's pretty strong. So they did play Helicopters and Always Watching, so their build is really fast and aggressive. But it did struggle a little bit sometimes against red aggro decks. So and then you sideboard and become more of a controlish mid-range build with all the extra removals, really a bunch of artifact heat from the sideboard, and just extra power for grinding capabilities. So it can go either way, and their deck did relatively well. It put a bunch of people at 10-4 or around that, but something was missing. Otherwise, I think we saw many great players on this deck at the tournaments. I think they would have done better if they would have known what the metagame will actually end up being. So I think they would redefine this deck, or somebody would, because something is missing, or maybe it's just a run metagame for this type of build. We shall see. Red Green Beast that I haven't seen actually at the Indianapolis Open. So this is my build, but Haruruya guys actually had their own version. I'll try to show you in a bit. So mine was big on the pumps and actually not so big on energy, unlike the version from the Japanese pros. I've even had like the Messenger, and yeah, there is a chance that red-black is simply just better as a very hasty burn or sly kind of deck. So what was good about this list is the synergy between the Cub and the Helion, and then some other stuff. So very fast, very aggressive, really quick, and then even supporting the Bruiser, because why not? Just a hasty Juggernaut, and then it's not that hard to cruise it if you want some big trample dude going on. My sideboard was just a rough sketch. I thought like you probably want Pacifist against other aggro decks, and then Prodder or against controllish decks maybe. Prodder against slower decks. Hardness Lightning, probably something I should have put main deck, but I just didn't see space, and in some matchups you don't really want it. Some extra capabilities against mid-range or slow decks, or the decks that run big win conditions. So yeah, let's show you the Japanese guys version of this tag. Bit of misfortune for me to not put it out straight ahead for ya. So yeah, this is what they had. It was more on the double strike kind of plan, together with this artifact guy that gets doubled for energy. They even had the Hydra for bigger pumps. I don't necessarily approve this 1 green search basic card. It just gives you 2 energy. I think it's low impact. Other than that, I kinda like this list. What I don't like is that they don't have that many 1-drops, and their curve is kinda weird. I do like the defense in this deck, probably. So, also, the problem is that while you do have protection spells like defense and the Hydra can protect itself, but it doesn't look very smooth to me. This deck could have some very awkward draws. So I think if you want to go red-green bits, like red-green energy, you probably need to find a compromise between this build and the one I've shown you. Moving on, I thought of the vehicles deck splashing blue and black, which was definitely wrong, and splashing black is okay, but then becomes a different deck. Again, my misstep, because I thought that like you could play a bunch of vehicles, but you shouldn't. And I thought that blue gives you a lot of grinding capabilities and answers against control decks and mid-range, but it seems like just by going red-white you can be simply too fast for a lot of slow decks. So I shown you the CVM's builds that actually took down the tournament, so that was red-white vehicles. And then let's have a look at the 4th place from that event. That's the black-red aggro, black-red kind of vehicles artifact deck. 4 PS, that's crazy. But then Bushwhacker is a nice one. Maybe you want a second one in this deck, I'm not so sure. He played 4 of the Courier, that's kind of interesting. So, I don't know, perhaps it's cool because it kinda lets you mulligan your hand later on. It's a cheap hasty dude. Helps the Apprentice, helps Bushwhacker and Pianolor, and extra fodder for the Scrounger. Just 2 cruisers, that seems kinda weird. I'm not sure about Key to the City on this deck, but it helps to activate stuff like Fury Temper, which is nice. Also, it activates some other stuff. Yeah, extra Bushwhacker in the sideboard, a lot of burn and removal. Call the Bloodline in the sideboard for against controller's matchup. More removal. Kaladesh for, I don't know, let's say mirror match, which is aggressive against control. Interesting deck, but some things just don't compute or don't add up in my mind. I mean, Key is interesting, but is it right for this deck? Do you really need the Courier here? That's another question. Why only 2 cruisers? Yeah, he played like 23 lands, but still, I don't know if that's correct. I like the sideboard though, but in main deck, I don't know. Perhaps would have changed some cards. And last but not least, the Mardu version of the vehicles, 11th place at that same Open, combining the black goodies and goodies from the white. So you have the Depala and Motorist, you have the Exemplar, of course. This build did play Apprentice, which card holder guys didn't. But then you add to the picture the Scrounger, that really helps to crew up stuff, or just to come back all the time and annoy your opponent. Furcopters for cruisers, no flagship here, but instead using those slots for extra removals and a bit of burn. The card holder guys had the Selfless in the main deck, compared to what's here. Blast Alliance here. Yeah, I could see. Could be a very nice card in the mirror match. For example, right down, that's crazy. Sorry, target blocking creature, huh? Not sure I'm a fan of this. One flagship in the sideboards, Talia, Gideon, Declaration. Okay. A few questionable choices, but they maybe are good enough. I'm not sure about this round down. It seems kinda clunky. It's a fine card, but I mean, could be good in the mirror. But it's just a, well, okay, it's a 2-mana instant removal, but it's very situational, and then is it worth to run it just to give your creature trample? Okay guys, that's it for this time. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, check the social media accounts of our stuff, so lots of funky things, not just Magic cover games and just all goofy things around. And until the next sale, goodbye folks.